38 Charlie, wait, 38 Charlie, this is 7-1, Roger, station signal reports. All stations okay to difficult, all stations now okay to difficult due to heavy interference.
Hello all stations, Delta Oscar, this is 4 Alpha, radio check, over. Do you remember that? I'm not 4 Alpha, I'm Ray, G4NSJ, 4 Alpha. They were great days, weren't they, back then? The army surplus gear, all the equipment in the 60s, well, and before the 60s. GWM Radio, you saw a picture of the shop front there. Les Grout in Worthing, West Sussex. Do you remember Portland Road, Worthing? Loads of people went there, not only from around here, but from all over the country. People travelled down to Les Grout, GWM Radio, to poke around in his shop. Army surplus store. Well, it was an army surplus store, but it was just full of everything, not just army stuff. You name it, he had it. It was, I don't know, I spent most of my life there. I virtually lived in his shop. First of all, let me explain about this video. I put on videos, as you know if you've watched my videos in the past, I'm often banging on about the old days, 19 sets. You know, I've banged on about 19 sets for decades. And I get a lot of emails and messages saying, love the old days, love hearing you reminisce about the old days. One chap summed it up recently in his email. He said, I wasn't around in the 60s, I wasn't born then. I missed out on all this stuff. That's why I love listening to you talking about it, all about the old days, the Army Surplus Store, the CCF Combined Cadet Force on 5330 kilohertz, kilocycles as it was back then. Well, no, back then it was 5.33 megs. We didn't go on about kilocycles, kilohertz. And what else was there? There was Tango Golf. That was just below 5 megs. Whiskey Lima, I believe, was that CW only, Whiskey Lima? I think that was 4030 kilohertz, Whiskey Lima. And then, of course, there's Echo Charlie. Now, that wasn't CCF, that was Pirate, 6.6 megs. That's still going now, just about. I'm not sure about the CCF frequencies. I don't know. They were public schools, you know, private schools, and they had their own Combined Cadet Force chap there, like an army chap that was in charge, and they had 19 sets and R107 receivers, all sorts of stuff, and all over the country. And they would chat to each other. They were schoolboys, and they would chat to each other under supervision of the, whatever he was, the commanding officer or whoever, whatever he was. And of course, we could join in. But before all that, before my 19 set, it all started when I was 12. I remember that. I went downtown in Worthing, and there's this shop with cutlery in the window, knives and forks with old ivory handles. I said, what's all this? And there was an army radio in the window. That's what caught my eye. I thought, hello, what's that, army radio? And I went in. And the chap didn't mind me looking around. 2 or 3 radios in there. And I just poked around looking at them. I thought, that's interesting. And I'd never seen a shop like that before, you know. Then some time later, I had an old shortwave radio at home. Old rabbit hutch type valve, you know, domestic thing. And it was all right, but I wanted something better. So I went down to this shop with my dad, and by then it did say Martin over there. I thought it said S. Martin, but his name was Peter Martin, I think. Anyway, went in there. It was different. It was GWM Radio, Portland Road, Worthing. And there's old Les Grout there. There he is, Les Grout. Bless his cotton socks. What a character. And my dad said to him, oh, my lad wants a shortwave radio to sort of listen to things on. And Les said, well, it's something, you know. I think my dad said something cheap. Well, that's nice. Cheap. Anyway, I don't know what it was. 5 shillings, 5 bob or whatever it was. Maybe it was 10 shillings. I got this shortwave radio, which was very good, but the dial was just like a vernier, 0 to 100. You have no idea what frequency you're on, which wasn't too good, really. I used that for, I don't know, 6 months. I wanted something better. I needed to know what frequency I'm on. I'm hearing people say on there, like on the broadcast bands, this is so-and-so radio transmitting on, and they give out the frequencies. Well, I didn't know what frequency I was on. Didn't have a signal generator or anything like that. I was, what was I, about 13, 14, I suppose. Then I went to work. when I was 15, radio and TV apprentice engineer. Went to work and I met this chap, Jeff. Oh, what a man. He said, you want to get on there, you want to talk, you want to listen, you want to be talking on there. And I said, oh, I don't know about taking the radio amateurs exam. No, I don't mean that. He said, you don't need that. Don't need that. Isn't it awful? You don't need that. He gave me a transmitter. He said, what receiver have you got? I think by then I had a half decent receiver. I had a Lafayette I bought from some chap. I don't know how much it was. A valve Lafayette receiver. And that was really nice. So this chap, he brought round one evening this transmitter. He built it himself. It's got VFO, AM of course. Showed me how to use it. Switch the aerial from that to the receiver and all that. And he said, what we'll do, we'll have a chat. It was 6.6 megs. I didn't know that. Again, it was a vernier dial. I didn't know what frequency I was on. So when he got home, he called me. I could hear him. It was about 8 miles that way. I could hear him. So he said, over. And I said, hello? Hello, can you hear me? He said, yeah, no problem at all. So that was it. We started having a chat regularly on there. Then, of course, I got an 18 set. I'm just trying to get the chronological order correct. An 18 set. I forget where I got it from. Not GWM. Not Grouties, as we called it. Les Grout. Grouties. I don't know where I got it. I built a power supply for it. I was, 15 at the time when I went to work. Maybe I was 16 by then. And I fired it up at an aerial power supply. And I could hear a chap saying CQ 40 metres. Well, that's good. Grabbed the mic, carbon mic, G3 so-and-so, this is G3 whatever I chose. I just made up, of course. Oh, hello, he said. Yeah, I'm so-and-so in Worthing. I thought, oh, that's my hometown, that's where I am. So I said, my name's John. I'm in Chichester. Because I didn't want to say where I was. Anyway, we had a bit of a chat. I said, 18 set, they were 2.5 watts. 18 set, 2.5 watts. And the chap at work, I told him about it. No, he said, you don't want an 18 set. No, you don't want that. You want a 19 set. 19 set? What's that? So I was down Grouty's shop the next day, lunch hour, down the shop. I said, Les, have you got a 19 set? I didn't know what it was. How many do you want? He said, I've got hundreds. And he probably did have hundreds because he bought stuff from the MOD, the Ministry of Defence. He had loads of stuff, lock-up garages all around the town. All over the place he had stuff, equipment. So he said, there's one on the shelf there. I went down and looked. And I remember saying word for word, I said, oh, it's a bit scruffy. He said, what do you mean it's a bit scruffy? I said, well, it's all right, I'll have it, but it's a bit scruffy. And he said, come with me, because I was always in there, he knew me, come with me. So we went out the shop, and then in these double wooden doors, like a side store, there's 19 sets by the dozen. Which one do you want? He said, oh, wow, I'm looking around. Found one very clean, looked lovely. I said, I'll have that one. So he said, did you get a power supply with it? And he said, I'll tell you what to you, 30 bob. That's £1.10 shillings, which was £1, which is £1.50 now. 30 bob. So I thought, well, they're all 30 bob. It says on the one in the shop 30 bob, £1.10. And what I didn't realise was he was giving me the power supply with it. The big power supply, was it a dog bone connector? Rotary converter in there, rotary transformer, vibrator pack for the receiver. And I'd taken my bike down there, you see. I was going to put it on the saddle and wheel it back. And he said, how are you going to get this back? I said, well, I don't know, I'm at work this afternoon. I was going to take it back on my bike. And he said, where do you live? So I told him. He said, I'll drop it off. And I thought, that's nice. He said, when I close up, I'll drop it off. Because he didn't live, he lived between the shop and me, halfway, so it wasn't too bad. When I got home that evening, my mum said, some chap came round and left something in the hall for you. And I went out the hall, there it is, 19 set power supply, there it is. Les had looked after me. It was 30 bob in the shop, but that wasn't with the power supply, that was extra. Plus he delivered it. I mean, come on, £1.50 with power supply delivered one I chose, a very, very clean one with a PVC wiring. Was it the Mark III Canadian? Can't remember. There was a Russian version, wasn't there? So I've got this thing in the shed and I plugged it all in. I had an old 12 volt car battery in the shed, connected it to that. Vibrator pack fires up. HT comes up on the transmitter. You've got a meter switch. Receiver HT 250, whatever it was. Tuning around. Yeah, I can hear things. It works. I can hear things. It works. But how do I transmit? I can't fire it up. I don't know what to do. So of course the next day at work, Jeff, I got the 19 set. What do I do? How do I do it? He'd already told me the pins for the loudspeaker. You've got two big sockets on the front. So I with croc clips, I clipped on that. But I didn't know where the microphone went. So he said, what you want to do? He drew me a little circuit. He said, right, an ECC83. Okay, build that. There's a little circuit. Build that inside. Jack socket on the front. Wire the output from the second valve, the anode, coupling capacitor to wherever it was. I think I took the microphone transformer out for the carbon mic. Do you remember the microphone transformers? And I put it in the grid or wherever of this valve, this octal valve. And crystal microphone, hello, it worked. Crikey, I thought this is good. 80 metres, bloke there, CQ. I put a switch on the front as he told me to. Turned on both relays, transmit. Yeah, G3 so-and-so, this is G3 whatever I made up again. Oh, good signal. He said, yeah, where are you? He said, I'm in Worthing. I thought, not another one in Worthing. He was down the road from me, like half a mile. So I said, John in Chichester again. And actually it was quite funny. He said, no, you're not. He'd looked up this call sign. He said, according to this, you're in Scarborough or wherever. So I said, I'm just testing. He said, yeah, I know. Yeah, go on. Anyway, we did have a little chat, which was good. But that was it. I then had a 19 set. And of course, I carried out modifications. I built a mains power supply in the 19 set itself, got rid of the external power supply. Oh, the external one, by the way. Receive was the vibrator pack. Transmit was a rotary transformer. Big motorised thing, 12 volt motor one end and generator for 600 volts the other end. When you fire up the transmitter, there's this motor going. It's great fun. All a learning curve, all experience, back then. I know it was illegal chatting then, didn't have a licence, but I was learning. And that's what it was all about back then, having fun and learning. By the way, the reason it was an ECC83 valve, double triode, is because an EF86 would have been good. High gain, was it pentode? But it was 6.3 volt heaters, and the 19 set was 12 volt heaters. So the ECC83, if you remember, if you're old enough and you can think back that far, had two heaters, one for each triode. You could either wire them in parallel or series. So I think pins 3 and 4, which are normally the B9A heaters, so it went through one heater to pin 9, back to pin 3 or whatever, so you could have them in series. Or join 3 and 4 together and put 6.3 from there to pin 9. I thought I was so clever remembering that. It wasn't 3 and 4, that was the B7G valves, wasn't it? B9A heater was pins 4 and 5. Okay, so it's 4 and 5 and 9, which is the centre tap. I'll get it right in a minute. So that's why we use an ECC83, just because it was 12 volt heaters. I had a lot of fun with the 19 set. I had that for quite a few years actually. Well, one thing I did do though, after a while, after I don't know how long, I don't know the dates and then how long things were, I fired up the 18 set just out of fun. I wasn't sure what to do with it. I fired it up one evening and I heard this chap calling Echo Charlie. I thought, Echo Charlie, what's this? This isn't 40 metres, 80 metres. And his call sign was something like, 18 Alpha. So I answered him and he said, oh, good to hear someone on Echo Charlie. I said, what's this? It was 6.6 megs, where I'd been originally with the homemade transmitter, if you remember. Long story short, he was in Southampton on an 18 set. And we had a chat and he said, I've got a 52 set here, transmitter. Do you want it? Well, I'd never heard of a 52 set. So I said, yeah, I'll have it, whatever it is. It had to be good, didn't it? 52 set, I'll have that. He said, get the train. We worked out a date and a time. Get the train to Southampton, whichever station. I'll meet you there. He met me there, went to his house. 52 set. I bought it back on the train. There's transmitter, 813 valve in it. Big heavy thing. I'm lugging it on the train. I got to the station this end. I had to walk half a mile with this. Anyway, I fired that up. I won't go on too much about each individual set that I had because I'll be here hours. So 2000 volts on the anode of the 813. What I did was I built a power supply, mercury vapor rectifiers, 1000 transformer at half an amp, 500 milliamps, 2000 volts. And I built it in this sort of cupboard thing. When you open the door, micro switch, HT is discharged, big resistors, mains disconnected, all that stuff. So I didn't kill myself, And the 52 set transmitter, Stoner Crows 813. I remember firing it up the first time. This bloke said, where are you? Next door to me, you in my road? He was up north somewhere. I don't know what the 813 was running. They reckon it's a 100-watt transmitter. I think it was more than that. So that I had fun with that. Oh, that was great. Whoever I called, wherever they were in the country, I'd go back to them. Wow, big signal. I then got the matching receiver. That was nice. The 52 set receiver, I liked that. Of course, the two matched each other. It's lovely. This is where it all started. I'm still, 16, maybe 17 by then. And I just loved it. This was life. And I was loving it. GWM Radio, 52 set, 19, 18 set. I was in my element, to say here the least. Everything was brilliant. There's my Bah Humbug hat, look, for Christmas. For my Christmas video, look out for that one. Simon worked at GWM Radio. There he is, Simon. Yogi, there's Yogi. And I got to know them, of course. I got to know Simon particularly well. He's about my age. I think Yogi was older than me. Can't remember ages. And we got to know each other quite well. And that's where I got the 52 set receiver from. I got the transmitter from Southampton, got the receiver from Grout's. I forget the price of it. But again, a brilliant bit of gear. All this took me on to then get my Class B G8 licence. So I was on 2 metres, on AM 2 metres, which was okay. But after all the experience I'd had on HF, talking to people on 80 metres, 40 metres, Echo Charlie, the CCF lads on Delta Oscar, 5330 kilohertz. 2 metres was, I don't want to be rude, but it was boring. Oh, hello, I'm down the road from you, Oh, okay. AM, aerial, I had a 4-element Yogi. I had to turn the scaffold pole outside the shed. It was boring. I wasn't getting far. I didn't have a big tower with a rotator and a huge beam on top, anything like that. So I had to get the G4, which I did. I can't remember the year I got that. Some years later, because I was on HF, I was on Echo Charlie, and I was on the CCF. I was even talking to the fishing boats out in the trawler band. I'm near the channel here, I'm only a mile from the sea. English Channel, fishing boats out there. Give them a shout. Hello, what you caught? What you catching today? Is the fishing any good? They'd say, who's that? Oh, I said, they got to know me. 1 or 2 of them got to know me. I'd just say, oh, it's me. They knew I was on the land. Because initially, what boat you in? Where are you? What's the name of your boat? I told 1 or 2 people, fishing vessel Montrose. No one believed me. So that was great. Why get the G4? But in the end, to be honest, this GPO chap said to me, if I were you, I met him in Grout, I'll tell you that in a minute, stone the crows. He said, if I were you, I'd go for the G4. It was a kind of little bit of a warning, I suppose. I was in Grout's GWM one afternoon rather, and I found this big variable capacitor, wide space vanes, and I'm looking at it, and this chap came over and he said, oh, that's nice, what are you going to do with that? I said, I'm going to build a transmitter. Oh, okay. He said, yeah, what for? What band? I said, medium wave transmitter. Oh, right. Oh, pirate. He said, oh, yeah, pirate. And there's Les Grout behind it doing this. And I'm thinking, what's the matter with Les? And this chap said, so how far you got with the transmitter? I'm going to use an 813 valve. and I should get a good 100 watts. And there's Les pulling his hair out. No. So anyway, in the end, this chap wandered off, and Les said to me, "Do you know who that is?" I said, "No. Who is it?" He said, "That's the GPO bloke, Ron Dalton." No, there's a name, Ron Dalton. Struth. He said, "You're just telling him you're building a medium wave pirate radio transmitter. He's the one that busts pirates." I said, "Oh, well, I didn't know." He said, "Well, no, obviously not." Anyway, I bought the variable capacitor and a few other bits, and I built the transmitter anyway. So that was good fun. After that, I knew Ron, and he knew me. He said to me one day, we were in the pub in the Lamb at Durrington. We weren't together, he just sort of happened to be there, and he said, "Oh, hello." And I said, "Oh, hi, Ron." And he said, this wasn't medium wave anymore, I was on the CCF, He said, "All the time you're doing what you're doing, I'll leave you alone." And I just said, "Oh, okay, thanks." I wasn't sure initially what he meant. What he meant was, I was on the CCF frequencies, chatting to the schoolboy lads on there. I was doing it properly. I wasn't mucking about, I wasn't playing music, I wasn't swearing. I was joining in the CCF nets properly. And that's what he meant. All the time you're doing that, fair enough, I'll leave you alone. He didn't like medium wave, he didn't like that idea at all. Anyway, so what happened next? Where am I chronologically? I'll have to have a think. Hang on a minute. For those of you that remember GWM, here's a few shots inside the shop. Absolutely full of stuff. As I said, there are also lock-up garages in and around the town, full of gear. I went in one garage, big double garage, and it's full of Pye Westminster. The radio telephones, the old transceivers, Pye Westminsters. There must have been several hundred in there. Goodness, well, I suppose he got them from the MOD, I don't know. What he did, he was very clever, good businessman. He'd have one Pye Westminster in the shop, sell that, then he'd replace it with another one. He wouldn't have a pile of them on display. He had quite a lot out the back. I think there's a photo, one of these photos shows them. Not very clear pictures, but it gives you an idea of what it was like inside the shop. And that's where it all started for me. I got the G4, went to North Foreland, GNF, to the coast station there, got my 12 words a minute Morse, and I enjoyed HF, G4NSJ, I enjoyed all that. But there was still this sort of calling to Echo Charlie and the CCF, It's gone now. Echo Charlie, I hear one or two sideband stations on 6.6 megs, but I don't join in anymore. I don't want to lose my license really, so I don't bother with that. There's only one or two stations left. The CCF, I think they've gone. The Combined Cadet Force, I don't hear anything from them at all. The nearest one to me was Lancing College, which was 15 Alpha, and they were never on the air, so I started using their call sign. And if they looked me up in the net directory, which I had a copy of the net directory, if they looked me up, then they thought I was just down the road, Lancing College. I also had the authentication code sent to me by one of the lad down in Somerset. He sent me the authentication codes every month. If they didn't believe you were genuine, they thought you were a pirate, they'd say authenticate something like, 29. So I'd look up on my chart, 29, I authenticate 47. And they'd say, yes, that's correct. That would prove that I'm a genuine CCF lad. The trouble is, some people got hold of these not the net directory, the authentication codes every month. They changed them. I was one of those people. It came through the post from this lad who was actually in the CCF. So I had the authentication codes. It was all a bit naughty, but as I said, the GPO chap, I wasn't mucking about. I wasn't playing music and swearing and causing problems. I was joining in properly. Equipment in use, 19 set, aerial, dipole, cut for Delta Oscar. I did it all properly. I did it properly because I enjoyed it. Unfortunately, a lot of the gear I had has gone. I no longer have a 19 set. I sold my last one a year or two ago. I just don't have the space. I need a place like GWM Radio, loads of storage. All this gear is big. What do they call it now? Boat anchor. I've got an R209 here. I've got an HRO receiver that I've restored. That's working. CR100. This is a Paraset Spy radio replica I'm building. that's coming on. I've made a video about that, or 2 videos at least. It works. I've got to build the wooden box for it. Old Sailor receiver there. I've also, what else have I got? AR-88. There's my AR-88 photo of that. I've got a Rakel, not quite 1940s, but a Rakel RA 1772 from about mid-70s, I believe, that one. So PCR receiver, that one I believe is in the loft, up in the attic somewhere. But the trouble is, all this is, as I say, it's large bits of equipment. Where do you put it? I'm lucky to have this huge room. This is the front bedroom of the house. So no one uses it anymore. Well, they can't now. It's full of my stuff. As my lovely wife calls it, junk. I say it's not junk. It's valuable electronic equipment. She can't quite get that right. I don't know why. So shall I stop here? I look a bit deathly white. It's the sun. We've got bright sun today. Beautiful. Bit of a wind from the west and blue sky, sunshine. Just going back to that homemade transmitter that chap gave me. It was in the shed. I'd gone in, there was a phone call for me. And from in the house, I heard this dull thud, kind of poof. What on earth's that? Went out to the shed after the phone call, and the transmitter, the cabinet, it looked like steam coming out, not smoke, but steam. So I undid the front of it, pulled the chassis out of the cabinet, oil everywhere. The oil-filled transformer had blown itself apart. There's supposed to be a little plug, isn't there? If it gets hot, the little plug blows out. Anyway, the chap that built it hadn't put an HT fuse in there. There was an HT short, and that was that. Transformer, oil-filled, blew apart. The transmitter was wrecked. I couldn't clean it all up. That was the end of that. There was a chap next door, his house. Their kitchen was at the back, and they had a fluorescent, the strip light, fluorescent light. I'm on the 52 set one evening, hello, all that and all this business. And their strip light is coming on and off. It's modulating when I'm talking into the mic. It was switched off, but it was modulating. He said to me a few days later when I saw him, this kept happening. He said, you know about electrical stuff. He said, why is my kitchen light, it keeps flashing, it's like a disco. I just said, I don't know, but strange. I also walked down the garden with a fluorescent tube and it lit up under my aerial. That's the 52 set. I don't know what power it was putting out. But another thing that was funny, I don't know how long, are you bored yet? Another thing, I was parked down the seafront, tank aerial on top of the old Hillman Minx I had, 12-foot tank aerial, 19 set on the back seat with the original power supply, vibrator, rotary converter. Cops pulled, I was talking to the fishing boats. Cops turned up. Hello, he said, what's all this? He said, we talk about you down the station. We've seen your car with the aerial. What's all this about then? I said, amateur radio. Yeah, amateur radio. I'm licensed radio. Right. He said, yeah. He said, we've often wondered, we talk about it down the police station. He said, I'll tell the lads what it is, amateur radio. There's me talking to the fishing boats out there. Hello, lads, what you caught today then? I don't know, that was funny. Shall I stop here? I think I better stop here, and I got a sore throat. I'm going to dry up in a minute. I better have a cup of tea or a beer. Another reason I went for the G4, the A licence, apart from the GPO bloke telling me to, or advising me to, I liked Morse code. I liked CW. I'd listen on 500 kcs to the ships and the coast stations. Fantastic. They were bashing it out. I don't know what speed. But there was Morse code all over HF back then. I wanted to know what it was. So that's another reason I got the G4. And I did use CW on 80 metres and top band. For a long time, I didn't use phone a great deal. For the first year, at least, I got my licence. I was always on the key. I still do it, but not. I've got a bit rusty now. And there aren't that many stations now on CW, which is a shame. But I do still enjoy that. Okay, Ray at G4NSJ.co.uk. If you've anything to say, rubbish. Ray at G4NSJ.co.uk. I think I'll end it here, because otherwise I'll bore you. If you want more, just say so. If loads of you say, yeah, we want more, yeah, or if, I will. If loads of you say, rubbish, get off. Get off. Remember the repeaters in the old days? Oh dear. The repeaters. The things that used to go on like 2 metre repeaters. That's for another day, another story, that is. Thank you for watching. I hope you're still with it. What is it, half an hour now or more? I hope you haven't dozed off. We've gone down the pub. You can go down the pub now. I shall see you next time, if there is a next time. Let me know if you want more. Cheers for now. 7-3 from the south coast of England.